Hello everyone! We are all glad to have you listening today and wanting to get better at chess. As you all know, you can never not get better. Today's lesson is about something that many players overlook and think is unimportant, but it is actually very important. It is about the back rank weakness. This is just one of many possible weaknesses that can happen in a chess game. And I'm going to show you two wonderfully illustrated games to start off that provide the perfect example of the back rank weakness theme. Then I'm going to ask you to solve a few positions at the end. Also, please refer to the schedule posted below for an overview of the next upcoming lessons. Alright, now let's begin with number 1. Alright, so our first game is played by Adams as white and Torre as black, who is actually Mexico's first Grandmaster. So, here's the moves: e4, e5, knight f3, d6, d4, e takes d4, queen takes d4, knight c6, bishop to b5, bishop d7, bishop takes knight, bishop takes bishop, knight c3, knight f6, castles, bishop e7, knight to d5, bishop takes knight, e takes, castles, bishop to g5, c6, and c4. So in the game, c takes d5 was played. However, just as a side note, knight can take as well, because after pawn takes, bishop, knight takes, queen takes, take, and after queen to b5, the position is equal, and black is doing rather fine. But in the game, black took with a c-pawn, which is also perfectly fine. So c takes, rook to e8, rook f to e1, a5, rook to e2, and now I want you to take a look at black's side of the board and think, what would you play as black? Alright, if you thought of the move rook to c8, you were right in the sense that that is what the Grandmaster played. However, the Grandmaster got a question mark for playing it. The back rank is really weak. If this bishop moves, and the rooks become doubled on the e-file, rook takes rook, queen takes rook, rook takes queen, and black just lost a queen for a rook. And that's not good. So, the only good move here for black is actually h6. This allows the king some room. It also forces the bishop to either move away from the knight, or take the knight, and after bishop takes knight, if the rook takes the rook, the queen can take, and everything is fine. However, with rook to c8, rook a to e1 comes, and now the pressure is on the bishop right here. Sorry. Black did not actually play that. Instead, black played queen to d7. Just to get out of the line, so now the rook can take back first. Because otherwise, if he does anything else, bishop takes knight, and the g-pawn is forced to take back, which weakens the king. So white took the knight, black took back with his bishop, and now white gets his first exclamation mark of the game, which he makes a few of them in a row, just because of how amazing he played. So pause the video and see if you can find the move that white played. Alright, the move was queen to g4. This is just brilliant because if queen takes, rook takes e8, rook takes, and checkmate. So the queen cannot take the queen, but it has to stay protecting the e8 rook. And if it moves back, rook takes rook, loses a queen. So, it can't do that either. Its only choice is queen to b5. Now white gets a double exclam move, which are very rare to earn because it has to be a perfect move. This was the perfect move. So if you thought of queen to c4, you are absolutely right. It is just astonishing how black can take the queen with two different pieces, but no matter which piece he takes with, it's checkmate on e8 in 2 moves. It's just perfect. So the queen now moves back to d7, and now see if you can find the next double exclam move that white made. Alright, so if you said queen to g4, you are not right, because this just repeats the same position, and we don't need that. So instead, after queen to d7, white played queen to c7. Now, again, no matter which piece takes, it's checkmate on e8. And now, the queen has to make a choice, the black queen. If it goes to d8, the queen can take c8, rook takes e2, queen takes d8 check, bishop takes d8, rook takes e2, and now you can see that white is up a rook. So obviously that's not what's going to happen, and instead black is of course going to play queen to b5. So now we have to drive away the queen off of that diagonal, because that queen is just really annoying. It's ruining our plans of back rank checkmate. So let's play a4. Right there, another exclam move. This just looks amazing, and it is amazing. Another move that looks amazing is actually queen takes b7. However, it's a question mark because it fails really bad after queen takes e2, rook takes, rook to c1 check, knight to e1, rook takes e1, or e2. Oh, sorry, I was right. Rook takes e1. And now, after rook takes, and checkmate. So now black is the one back rank mating them. So that's why queen takes b7 is not an option. So a4 was played. Now, of course, the queen is going to have to take a4. It's the only move. And now, another exclam. Rook to e4. Again, whatever piece takes it, it's checkmate. The queen takes it, the queen takes it, you just take with the rook. If the rook takes it, you again take the rook with the queen. So it's just perfect. So now the queen moves to b5, its last square. Now you can finally play queen takes b7, and in this position, black resigns, because his queen has run out of safe squares to guard against the threat of back rank checkmate. Wherever the queen goes, it's checkmate on e8. Or if he decides to take, it's checkmate. After rook moves back, rook takes, queen takes, checkmate. Or if the queen takes the queen, it's checkmate. Or anything else that happens, it's checkmate. So that was a perfect example of back rank checkmate theme. You just saw it throughout the entire game ever since black made the fatal blunder of rook to c8, thinking that taking the open file would be good. However, in the end, it turned out not to be so good because of all the pressure. This move here was the move that had to be played because it forces the bishop away. With rook to c8, you allowed white to complete his plan of doubling rooks, and now the threats just start coming. But if white is not able to double his rooks, and instead black plays a forcing move, now white lost its threat, and black has an escape square. So the game I just showed you is actually called The Greatest Game Never Played. And it seems like a weird name, like why would they name a game that? Wasn't it played by Adams and Torre? Well, actually, the history of the game is a little bit odd, because Torre was Mexico's first grandmaster, and he was a brilliant player, apparently. So then you ask the question, how is it possible for such a brilliant player to get into a terrible position? Well, the reason is because, was it ever played? that's what they thought. So, how was it possible to lose to Edwin Adams, who was actually of a lower standard, and, even more, he was Torre's sponsor? So this game was actually published in 1925, I found, and it appeared in the American Chess Bulletin. And then it was repeated throughout all different chess magazines and wherever else they showed games. So now you have to ask, was this game made up or was it actually played? And the chess historian Edward Winter, I found, investigated the matter and came up with new information. And he actually published it in The Life and Games of Carlos Torre by G. Velasco. And on it, it explained how he thought that Torre actually came up with this idea in a Skittles game, and that it was never played. And his friends, Torre's friends, also said the same thing. So, nobody knows whether it was actually played or not actually played, but who cares? It was still a brilliant chess lesson. Alright, so the next game I want to show you is not as good as the first game, but it still has a good instructional purpose. So, it starts out e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, castles, bishop e7, rook to e1, b5, bishop b3, castles, c3, and d5. And this is the starting point of the Marshall's attack. It was named after the American Frank Marshall, who prepared it to play against Capablanca in 1918 for the World Championship. However, he ended up losing it, and since then, though, the attack has become very popular. And after e takes d5, knight takes, e5, rook takes, there we go, and knight to f6. So in the actual, this is what Marshall played in the actual game, but nowadays people more likely would play c3. And after that it would be followed by bishop to d6. Or c3, d4, bishop to d6, rook back to e1. That's what they play nowadays. But in the game, Marshall still did a nice job of knight to f6. After that, d4, bishop d6, rook to e1, now knight to g4, threatening to win a pawn, h3, queen to h4. If the pawn takes the knight, it's checkmate, so the queen moves to f3, and bishop to h2 check seems rather weird. So it is a rather weird move. In Marshall's game, he actually played knight takes f2. And I'm just going to quickly show you Marshall's game. Just going to show you, and you can see that here black has a nice attack on the king. However, now, after this, the king moves into safety, and now it's hard to attack the king, pretty much impossible, actually, to attack the king. And if you just keep looking, eventually, white gets the passed b-pawn. And now the game went from black attacking to white about to win. And now black played the amazing move bishop takes f7 check exclam, because no matter what happens next, something bad is going to happen, such as king h8, rook takes h6 checkmate because of the pinned pawn. If rook takes, of course, they're just going to queen. Something like that. So, amazing game played by Marshall. However, let's go back to our normal game. Not knight takes f2, it was bishop to h2 check, and after that, king moves over to f1, and now knight takes f2, question mark. So black here is too busy attacking the white king that he's forgotten to check to see if white has any tactics of his own. And it just turns out white does have a tactic of his own, and it involves a back rank threat. So pause the video, see if you can find white's amazing move that ended up forcing black to resign. Alright, the move was queen takes f7. And black resigned because of if rook to e8, checkmate. And of course, if he doesn't take, and the king moves away, it's checkmate anyways, so no matter what, white has a checkmate coming up. So, this does look amazing, and it is. And now, once you know which back rank mates to look for, like how to examine the back rank, figure out when it's weak, you're going to know now to look for this in your game. Because in this game, black obviously just had this plan to attack black, and he won a pawn out of it. However, he never took into account all the checks and all the captures. That's what you gotta look at when you're playing your game. Examine all checks and all captures in your game. So yes, you should examine queen takes knight. You should also examine queen takes pawn. Oh wait, isn't this rook free over here? Well, of course it's not free because black has this big attack over here, and queen takes f7 wins the game. So, now that you know what to do, it's going to be easier to look for these in your games. Now when you're playing your game, you're going to be able to spot these back rank tactics better. Because this doesn't look like a normal back rank puzzle, because there's no threat of back rank mate right away, until you take into account this queen sacrifice. Alright, so now it's time to show you guys a few puzzles. And here's how I want you to solve these. I want you to look at the position, pause the video, and come up with the best idea you have for whoever it is to move. And all of these puzzles revolve around either back rank mate, back rank tactics, or a weak back rank. So, it's white to move in this position, and don't just think of one move ahead. Think of a strategy, or a plan, I should say, of what you're going to do. Alright, so you should have the solution. So let's see what you did and how it compares. So, before we start, I'm going to tell you how I solve tactics. I solve it, then I look at the answer to see if I got it right. Then, if I got it wrong, I stop immediately, I pause, and I look. Why is that the right move? What does it do? How does it win? And then I look, and then I check myself again to see if I finally figured it out. So, I want you to do that when you're looking at this position. So, of course, the first move is king to d2. I'm hoping you all saw that. So, queen to b4 check, and, of course, c3 blocking. And no, that does not give up a pawn, and you'll see why in a little bit. Queen back to d6, bishop to c5, queen takes c5, and you'll see why we sacrificed the bishop after rook takes, or rook check, rook to f8. We sacrifice the bishop so we can play queen to e6 check, force the king to h8, and put the queen on f7, which now wins the game for white. Or I shouldn't say it wins the game. h6 can be played, of course. Let's say queen takes, but now you're up a rook. Alright, so now for our next puzzle. Try to do the same strategy as you did in the first one. Pause the video, see what you would do, and then if you get it wrong, pause the video again and come up with why it was wrong. Alright, so first you have to evaluate the position, and you first notice that the queen is hanging. So you should do something about that, but of course not queen takes queen. That just gives up white's attack that white is going to have, of course. Bishop takes f7. Rook takes knight, and this is just a beautiful tactic. Now black's queen is the queen that's hanging, so black goes back to take back his pawn, and rook to e1, going for the back rank mate. Queen to f6. Queen to d5, pinning the rook, queen to d8, knight to g5, which actually wins the rook, queen to f8, rook to c7, saving his own rook, g6, knight takes rook. If queen takes rook, rook to e8, king to g7, queen to e6, check, king to h6, rook to e7, d6, queen to e3, king to h5, rook takes queen, h6, rook to f5 check, king down, and the queen checkmates. Alright, this third puzzle shows that white doesn't have to be castled in order to backrank mate them. So now do the same strategy as you have been doing and try to figure this out. Black to move. Alright, so the correct solution is rook takes a3. And now, no matter what, if rook takes knight, rook check, and you win the rook. The only other move that there is b takes, and then checkmate. And now, notice how the king cannot clear out any space at all for him, even if he plays here. Check, block, checkmate. That knight right there is doing an amazing job protecting the two escape squares, and actually white's rook in this position is amazing for black because it's blocking the only square that would be safe. Alright, this next puzzle shows that it doesn't have to be what you would consider a normal back rank checkmate. You can win material by using a weak back rank, like this. Alright, so here's the correct response. Bishop takes c4. Queen takes, queen to d1 check, king to f2, queen to d4, and now white is forced to give up the queen. Right, here's another one where black doesn't necessarily get checkmated on the back rank. However, the back rank is the reason why black gets checkmated in the first place. Alright, so first you have to notice that the back rank is weak. There's really nothing defending against it. And if you can get a rook in there safely somehow, you can easily destroy black. So, rook a to b1. The queen moves over to d3, and now you sack the queen for the rook, bring up the rook, and checkmate. Right. In this puzzle, black does not get checkmated. However, white uses the back rank to win material. So pause the video and try to solve this puzzle. Alright, here is the solution. Rook to b5, attacking the queen. Queen moves back to d8 to protect the rook. Rook takes rook, queen takes rook, and now queen to f5, threatening checkmate. And even if black tries to stop it, with a few distractions, it still changes nothing, because he has to play g6, and he loses a bishop. And after king takes, rook takes queen, white now has a minor. Now you know that back rank weakness tactics applies to everyone in every game. And now you can look. Yes, we have homework. And I'm just going to say, I got this idea from someone who filled out the Google form, and they said, I hope we have a lot of homework. So, I'm going to give you guys some homework. So it's going to be rather easy. Part 1, look for back rank weaknesses in your games and exploit them. If you can win material because of a weak back rank, do so. If, let's say, your back rank is weak, protect it. Strengthen your back rank. Do not let yourself lose a game, because of a back rank weakness. Part 2 of your homework. Give us some feedback on how you liked the lesson. Did you like it? What can we do better? Just anything. You can comment, leave us a comment, or whatever you want to do. Just tell us how you liked the video, and that'll work. And now part 3. If you haven't signed up yet, do so. So I'll put the link below. It's a Google form that you have to sign up on. It's really easy to do so. And also, if you're not in the Powerful Pawns group on chess.com, I recommend you join it, because that's where all the lessons are posted in the news, so you'll receive it via message chess.com. And part 4, please check out our new Google form link, which is below, and that link is going to be the link that you use to send in your games to be analyzed. So, to do so, you need to know how to get the PGN or FEN of your game. So, I'm going to show you how to do so. So here's a little game here. This is actually one of the puzzles. You can see right here, I already solved it. It's one of the puzzles I showed you about back rank weaknesses. And here's what we're going to do. Here's how you get the PGN. You click on this button right here. You click it, and it comes up with a little menu. And it says Get PGN/FEN. Really easy. Highlight the whole thing. Copy. And put it into the form so we can look at it. And then we're just going to be easily able to paste it in something like this. Game. Get FEN from clipboard. Right here. Now I can say load. And I have the whole game. So it's rather simple for us then. Makes it much easier. Or, if you have a game from chess.com, just copy the URL and paste it in the form, and then we can do that for you. If it was a game from an over-the-board game, just write out the moves, because that's what you're going to have to do. Unless if you already have it posted somewhere online, you're going to have to write out the moves, and we'll just manually punch them into whatever we put them on. So, that works too, just more work for you. So now that you know how to get it, that's great. You can also check out my video on how to figure out the FEN string without using a computer. Very useful when you want to just jot down a position. So, thanks for watching this video. And just so if you haven't realized yet, they are on YouTube. That's where we put them. So, if you're not watching this from YouTube, go to YouTube. If you have a YouTube account, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's called Powerful Pawns. And if you subscribe, you're going to be able to get the videos when they're posted right away. And you're also going to be able to get other videos that aren't in this lesson series. So that's a plus right there. If you're not on YouTube, that's fine. Just make sure you check your emails or your messages for the newest updates. So thanks for watching, and I hope this video helped. Next lesson is going to be about pawn power, because you can't have powerful pawns as your name if you don't talk about why they are so powerful.